Now from Fox, thanks again for joining us. I'm your host, Mike Page. On to international news right now. We head to Gaza, where Israel's security cabinet approved a plan to take control of Gaza City. It is the battle for Gaza, but it is also a battle of wording and phrasing about how Israel is going to conduct these operations. Netanyahu put this on X, saying, "We are not going to occupy Gaza. We are going to free Gaza from Hamas. Gaza will be demilitarized and a peaceful civilian administration will be established, one that is not the Palestinian Authority, not Hamas, and not any other terrorist organization. This will help free our hostages and ensure Gaza does not pose a threat to Israel in the future." So for more on this, we welcome our next guest to help break down the situation in the Middle East. Harley Lippman joining us, a political analyst. Great to have you on. And Harley, what does this look like if Israel does in fact occupy Gaza?
Be very difficult for Israel to do this. I think, as we know, the world has aligned against Israel. Even a lot of Israelis' own citizens are against this. And it's going to create more sanctions against Israel, more anti-Semitism. So you may wonder, why is Israel doing it? Because they basically don't have much of a choice. The analogy I'll give you is if Canada had elected Al-Qaeda and they launched an attack across the United States with 60,000 Islamist fighters, slaughtered, murdered Americans, went back to Canada with hostages, and now here we are. That would be no less acceptable to Americans than Israel to have on its border Hamas in charge.
And Harley, does Israel have a right to see this through? From the wording there from Benjamin Netanyahu, it's so that this doesn't happen, what happened to them with that terrorist attack against Israel. Do they have a right to see this through?
I would think so. It's called self-defense. I think, like any country, if you just change the names, every country would act like Israel in its effort to have self-defense. Remember, this is on Israel's border. This is an organization, Hamas, that's only goal is to kill every Jewish man, woman, and child in Israel. We have to be clear about it. This is their own words. And they are conducting an incredible propaganda campaign that's working. You have countries that are rewarding Hamas for this kind of massacre and murder of Jews. The fact that Canada, France, and England want to recognize a Palestinian nation, let's think about what that accomplished. Now Hamas is no longer at the negotiating table. Because of this, they said, why should we make concessions to Israel if European countries are going to force Israel to do it on their own? This is unhelpful. These European countries don't care about starving Palestinians. They care more they're frightened of the Muslim population in their country, and they're frightened of the empowerment of the leftist, woke, progressive side that has taken on this anti-Semitism, Jew hatred theme, which is blaming Israel for everything. When you think of humanitarian aid, no country in history has done more than Israel in feeding the population of its enemy. Nobody. So Israel is really going out of its way to deal with the issue of starvation. And everybody just blames Hamas. Now, it doesn't mean Israel doesn't make mistakes. They do make mistakes and have made them. They stopped sending in food in March as a way to pressure Hamas, believing that there was adequate food supply in Gaza. They were wrong. But that's a human error. It's not genocide. It's not deliberate starvation. And they've corrected it. So I think the world really doesn't see what's going on in the Middle East the way the facts demonstrated. And it's creating a very distorted picture of the Middle East.
And why is it for Israel? It seems like any move that they try to make, these pressure campaigns against them always happen. You made the analogy there a little bit ago, talking about just after 9/11, if other countries said to the U.S., hey, you can't go into Afghanistan, you can't try to locate Al Qaeda, they would be laughed at. But for Israel, it seems like some countries go against them when they're bordering really close to them.
Well, this is happening because of the infusion of money from Qatar, billions of dollars into universities and media outlets. It's the leftist, progressive, woke agenda now to embrace this cause of anti Semitism and to be against Israel and their right to exist, which is really shocking that, having progressive values would align them with Hamas, which is against everything that progressives believe in. Hamas is anti-gay. They throw gays off a roof. They're anti-women. They're corrupt. It's a dictatorship. On every level, a progressive should want to embrace Israel, which is the gay capital of the Middle East, and is open-minded and has humanitarian values. And then when you look at the media, how they cooperate with these anti-Semites. I mean, the New York Times having on the front page an emaciated child where the mother said it was healthy, but due to starvation, the child now is starving to death. Nobody noticed that the mother looked well-fed and is healthy, and the brother of this child was well-fed and healthy. And then the New York Times had to do a retraction because this child apparently had cerebral palsy and was malnourished because of that, not because of starvation or anything. And they had to issue retraction on page 50 where maybe 1/10 of a fraction of 1% even saw it. And it happened again. And this goes on regularly. The media is constantly trying to show a distorted picture of the Middle East. They have embraced this anti-Israel position, which is also rooted in anti-Semitism. A lot of people can't get their head around that and they can't embrace it or they can't understand it. But anti-Semitism has been around for thousands of years. It went into hibernation after 1945, but it has come back. But the organization that's trying to commit genocide is Hamas, that tried to do that on October 7th in Israel and proclaimed they'll do it again and again. So this is where the world has to turn their attention and to the fact that Hamas is a terrorist organization like ISIS and Al Qaeda. The Arab League, the organization that represents Muslim Arab nations, has condemned Hamas and said they should disarm. So the problem is not really coming from the Muslim world. It's coming from Europe, where it's coming from white people who are aligning themselves with anti-Semites and are creating this atmosphere where people are hating Jews, and it's very frightening to Jewish people and terribly unfair.
And Harley, lastly, what is it going to take for Israel to put the maximum pressure on Hamas and have a complete surrender? Is that even possible? Are they getting close? I mean, what would have to happen for them to go?
You asked the right question. You asked the right question, and I don't think I have the right answer. It's very difficult. On the one hand, you have to defeat your enemy like in World War II. We decisively defeated Germany and Japan, the most militaristic nations in modern history. And 80 years later, neither country has any appetite for war. Why? Because we utterly and totally defeated them and they surrendered. So with that notion in mind, that's what Israel is focusing on in Gaza, so that they defeat Hamas, to liberate the Palestinian people, because Israel is at war with Hamas, not the Palestinian people. On the other hand, Hamas may never surrender. They'll still shoot at Israelis and continue this for who knows how long. So it may be better for Israel to declare victory, get their hostages back, and then go in and take them out completely, because Israel's fighting the war with one hand tied behind their back, because they're worried about the hostages. So they've got huge challenges. And I just hope they have this well planned and that they could achieve their goal, because it's going to be extremely difficult.
Yes, very difficult and very edgy at the same time. Harley Lippman, thanks so much for joining us on Live Now from Fox. We appreciate your input on this Friday.
You.